Hello and welcome to this brand new episode of the Silmarillion Film Project. You can tell I haven't been around in a while. I've forgotten how to pronounce the word. Tonight we have for you intrigue, deception, spycraft, and espionage. Sounds like Tolkien, right?
That's right. That's right.
We're bringing we're bringing you the Council of Estolad. So in fact, all those things will be true. Not usually associated with Tolkien. But part of the whole point of this endeavor is to let all you people out there know that there's more to Tolkien than just elves and dwarves.
That's right. That's right. Very good.
And I'm back after a COVID vaccine-induced several absences in a row. I feel like, but I'm feeling good. I've hit like my full or maximum protection now, so everything's good, and so I'm glad to be here. And tonight, as a part of this the spycraft episode, I'm joined as always by Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, and tonight we're joined by Marie Prosser, one of our head writers. How are you, Marie?
I'm well, thank you for having me on.
Good.
Excellent. Yeah. Today we this is an episode that I've been really looking forward to getting to because this is one of the a really dramatic moment that doesn't involve combat, or action like that, is this council, and especially the whole substitution of the fake Amlach, which is a really neat kind of moment. And so this has been something that I've been really looking forward to, and I've been loving how we've been kind of building up on that. Nick says somehow we wound up sneaking in some combat. Yeah, well, that's okay. I'm not saying it need to be anti-combat. I'm just saying it's a very interesting moment. It's funny because there are so many things. When I got to, when I was reading through the outline that you guys made and we were kind of thinking about what to do here, it was funny because that moment in the Silmarillion kind of stands out for being a little unusual, right? Like, this is not the way things usually, like, we don't see many examples of this kind of thing. And yet when we came to this point, it seems so obvious how to handle it, right? I mean, it just seemed like so many things that we've done have just like set this up really perfectly. And I think it's one of those scenes that's been, I think, kind of influencing us from afar in some sense, as we've been trying, one of the big questions that we've been sort of working on for a long time has been Sauron. What exactly is Sauron up to? We get a few places, where he's mentioned in the Silmarillion text, but, we always knew that Sauron was going to be one of our, he's like the sort of the stealth main character of the entire Silmarillion Film Project, right? And so, really following Sauron more and really being able to use Sauron's character and position as a way to really kind of explore and develop the progression of Morgoth's character and sort of how things go here, and looking at the long arc. I was about to go do like this for the arc of Sauron's character, but it's really the arc like this of Sauron's character. Not necessarily a straight diagonal line down, but trending downward pretty much from the beginning. Yeah, exactly. Right. It does start to asymptote a little at the end there. But anyway, like to sort of really, there's nobody whose character we get to play a longer game than Sauron's, right? So of course, in the course of working out Sauron's role, I find that we have like perfectly set up this moment and made it a very natural, and it's like a kind of thing we would have egregiously added if it hadn't been in the text in the first place. So anyway, but we will get to that in more detail soon. First, just a quick a couple quick announcements. First, reminder, Mythmoot 8 is coming up June 24th to 27th. It is going to be a hybrid event. We're going to be live in Leesburg, Virginia, and also online. You can sign up for all versions of that at signumuniversity.org/mythmoot. The schedule should be coming out soon, so that's something that I'm excited to see released. Of course, we have our Signum Academy clubs are continuing. We've got our book club and our creative writing clubs and conversation club and translation clubs. My own son is taking our Old English translation club right now, and he's been reading Cadman's Hymn, and it's been really fun. It's his first experience of an inflected language. So he's been all like learning about noun endings and stuff, and he's like, whoa, this is hardcore right here. It's fun. Old English is such a great way to learn about that. Anyway, good times being had by all. Encourage folks to look into our Signum Academy clubs. And a few Silm film announcements. We have episode 13 of the script discussion coming up on Sunday, May 16th. So you guys are coming to the end of the season next weekend, which is pretty exciting. So that'll be at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday the 16th. You can join Marie and Nick and the rest of our folks on Twitch, twitch.tv/signumu. You can join in, and of course you can contribute to the discussion and the circulation of ideas there in advance on the discussion forums. And speaking of the discussion forums, our nominations for casting for season 5 are now open. So one thing I've been kind of meaning to do for a little while, and I want to do here this evening, if I can find my window. There it is. I want to make sure everybody knows how to get to. We refer to the forums all the time, and this is where, most of the real work of the Silm Film Project happens. So if you go to forums.signumuniversity.org, that's our main forums page, and you can see there's all kind of forums here. This is where people do the notes and queries, questions on exploring the Lord of the Rings, and we got some other Mythgard forums and stuff down here. Sparrow's creative writing stuff, lots of really cool stuff going on here. But of course, up near the top, one of our original forums is the Silm Film Project, which has been going on here for some time. And you can see all the different topics. If you have ideas about sets and props, or you're thinking about art and costumes and all kinds of things. Lots of people have been contributing lots of different creative work in support of this project for a long time. You can go to any one of these forums. I see that Phil has been publishing music stuff in the music forum here. So we have our casting forum here. So you click on casting here, and you see that's broken down by season. So the season 5 nominations are here, and you'll see the list of all of the characters that we are nominated. There's the instructions up here from Hakan, and then all of the different characters whom we are casting for this season. So you can kind of. Okay, I'm tempted to start clicking on these now, but I'm not going to. No spoilers. We'll see who gets nominated. There are always some very intriguing nominations, but those will be discussed later on. So the way that this works, of course, now's the time to nominate. Just mention an actor or actress that you think would do really well for one of these roles, and then we'll kind of put those together. We'll have a round of voting. So people get the opportunity to vote on the castings, and then your votes will be submitted to us, and then Dave and I will decide whether we want to veto you or not. Usually we don't, but anyway, so we had our preliminary casting episode where we kind of talked through these characters and some of the things that we felt like would be good to sort of to see or to show in those, and then we will jump back in when it's time for the final casting decisions. That's always a fun session, and right now that's going to be coming up sometime soon. Well, not super soon because we're still only in episode 7, but it's going to be a couple months down the road, right, Marie?
Right. So nominations will be open through the end of May, probably. I'll have to check in with Hakan to know exactly what date they're going to close. Then, of course, we'll have the voting probably throughout June, and then maybe in early July the casting session. But I think you and Hakan probably have to work out the schedule for that.
Yeah. We'll figure out a time that Hakan and I can do. Of course, that's what led to our, what was it, 2 a.m. session?
Yeah,
Before.
we can pick a time that you, Hakan, and Dave can all be on
Yes.
at the same time. Because I don't think we got Dave the last time. So.
Yeah, well, it's, Dave and Hakan are 9 hours apart, but we can we'll figure out how we might be able to make it work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see what we can do. Anyway, so just to invite folks to be, and you can see, if I go back up here, you can see this is where the script discussions happen. So you can go to the script session from season 5, and you can see these are the threads for all of the different episodes that are currently ongoing. So anyway, so this is I just invite folks to take part. This has been the contributions we've been getting from people all over the place doing all kinds of wonderful things, whether it's art or music or the work that Hakan is doing on casting, and so many of the brilliant suggestions that people have had for nominating actors and actresses, for nominating for set locations. Right, I love the set location episode. That's always a lot of fun as we're trying to picture where we would want to to film some of these things, the location spotting.
We'll probably want to have those in by June.
Right.
So that's also something that should be happening right now if people have ideas.
Exactly. So yeah, very much welcome people's artistic suggestions and things, and any suggestions we get, we'll kind of put those things together, and we'll end up discussing things here in our post production. Stephen H says maybe fight choreography. It would be really interesting to talk about fight choreography, actually. That would be quite a bit of fun, actually. So yeah, that's something I have opinions about. So it would be interesting to talk about. Anyway, yeah. So just wanted to share there. That is our discussion threads. All right, so let us jump back into discussion here. All right. Oh, hey, Wally. I see we had a little cameo guest there. That's excellent.
Yes. Wally stopped by to say goodnight.
That's good.
His Triceratops he built.
There we go. Yeah, excellent. Boy, he's getting big. It's funny, kids grow up so fast. I was. I know, it's incredible. Yeah. I was talking with one of my former undergrad students today who were now like in the process of hiring to teach at Signum. And, he was talking about remembering my son when he was an infant in arms, and when I used to bring him to class, in a backpack, and sometimes, and he's now 13.
Yeah.
So yeah, these things happen. Okay. Episode 7, The Council of Estelad. So our timeline is 395. So we're 3 years after episode 6. So the Haladin have been settled down in Brethil for 3 years now. And where was the B plot again? I'm totally forgetting episode 6. It was like 2 weeks ago. It might as well never have happened.
It was a month ago, so you're okay.
Well, it's a month. Yeah, there we go. See, there it is.
In episode 6, we had the prison breakout from Angband.
Right.
As the main plot, right? And then the B plot was Hador being recruited by Fingolfin to go north, and then he was able to rescue the escaping prisoners at the end of the story.
Okay.
And then the separate plot was Haleth killing Tevilda.
Right.
And moving into the Farsh Brethil.
Right.
So you were right.
Okay. Right. About the moving into Brethil part. Okay. So,
yeah.
But Hador has been 3 years now in the north.
Right. So if he was a young man of about 18 when he joined up. He's now 21.
Okay. Okay.
So,
And so
equally a young man.
Right. Right. And he still has his basically his like original crew, right, that he went north with. Are there more more humans that have joined him since that time?
Not significantly, which is what this story would be about.
Okay. Okay.
So it's mostly the people who went up with him. I guess Fingolfin doesn't drop by for new recruits every year.
Right. 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 Yeah. Well, he probably thinks he's going very frequently if he only goes once every 3 years. So.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Okay. All right. And then in our B plot, of course, we have I have to admit, this is the episode where I was, I think, most surprised by the interlocking of the plot lines. I did not expect the C plot to connect to the others. I knew that Aredhel, we were going to come back to Aredhel because it's been a while since we've had Aredhel. We had her only just in a couple scenes, right? The last time we saw Aredhel and Eol, they were still traveling around. They were meeting with the dwarves, and there was that interesting moment with the translation from Kuzdul where, the audience was sort of shown that something is kind of sketchy going on there with Eol. But Aredhel didn't pick up on it yet, right? So there was some dramatic irony there. That's the last memory I have of Aredhel. Is that right? Am I forgetting anything, Marie? Uh-oh.
Well, she's not in episode 6. The question is she in episode 5?
Right.
I'd have to.
I think that was the episode 5 part. Like, it was a small bit.
What you just described was episode 4. So in episode 4 is when she's free to walk about still, and episode 4 ends with the birth of Maiglin.
Right. Okay, great. So we have had the birth of Maiglin, but of course we haven't checked in on them since the birth of Maiglin.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm pretty sure. So it is. Yeah, so it's been a couple episodes, and it's time to see how things are there. And the answer is not great.
Not great. Things starting to go south. So we have, right. We have we need to establish the dynamics with Maiglin and his mother and father, right, is clearly one of the some of the work that needs to be done there in the C plot, as well as reviewing more about the true character of Eol. And I believe this will be the first time that we're also having Aredhel basically discovering the truth of the character of Eol, right?
Yes, that's the transition in this episode, is that she has to make a choice. So she knows something at this point, right, and is not oblivious anymore.
Right. Okay. Cool. And then, of course, we're back to Incanus and the two brothers in Harad, and him trying to handle history lessons about Gondor in Harad. So, yeah. All right. These three are so intertwined, I'm going to want to probably jump around, but let's try to just see if I can stay focused on one plot line at a time. So we'll start with the A plot here. Okay. So Hador is going, so he sets out now, like the next step for Hador is, I'm going to go and I'm going to convince my people to come with me. So he is not just, a trusted ally of the Elven Kings, right, of Fingolfin and of Fingon, but he is basically determined to bring his, this is, how does he feel about it? Like, what is Hador's motivation? Does he feel a duty to do this? Does he feel like this is that he's doing something? Does it feel like, I'm not being at all clear what I'm getting at here. Like, what is his motive? Is he trying to benefit his people? Like, is that his core motivation? Or does he feel like his people could be a benefit?
You're trying to ask, does he see this as an opportunity?
Yeah.
For his people. And on at least one level, yes. Because Hador is aware of some of the issues that have been going on with the people in Estolad. Like he grew up with that. He's
Right.
he's not unaware that they feel like they've got these neighbors that they don't get along with. So he now thinks that if they moved up to Dor Loman, their neighbors would be Fingin and Fingolfin, who get along quite well with him.
Right.
He considers that an improvement to their situation.
Okay. So he does.
There is at least
Yeah.
one level of this would be good for us.
Right.
On the other side, there is the duty, the obligation of you guys, we need to be organized against Angband, and the only person who's doing that is Fingolfin, so we need to get behind Fingolfin.
Right. Because to what extent is there a sense of duty to Fingolfin himself, like a sense of like I want to like deliver my people to I'm gonna go recruit an army for Fingolfin. Do you see what I mean? Like it's that he feels that he wants to do that for the sake of which is not necessarily. I mean, it may also he may consider it a win-win situation and want to benefit his people too. But is that does that factor into his thinking as well? I mean, in the conversation that he has with, because we're starting the episode with Hador and Fingolfin alone, pretty much alone, right? Not wandering, but going to Dor Loman. So, we're going to have some one-on-one time with Hador and Fingolfin. How does he, is there a yes, I shall, bring an army to assist you up here in the north? Like, is that a sort of a duty that he feels?
He's not making any promises about that because he does not, in fact, command an army to bring. So it's more that he expresses the hope that when he returns, there will be more people with him. But the only army he can promise are the guys who are already up there.
Right.
So I think there's at least some level there where it's not like I have sworn fealty to you, so I will go fetch all my people and we're gonna be your army now. Because Hador can't speak for his people. He's a 21-year-old guy who left 3 years ago. Like,
right, with his silver medal in the competition and nothing else.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he has no promises to make, but he has hopes, and so what he expresses to Fingolfin are his hopes.
Okay.
And what Fingolfin expresses is, hey, this land is available and we would love to have your people live in it. So Fingolfin puts the option on the table for him, and Hador says what his hopes are, but there's no promises or expectations made to each other because they know that that's not where things are yet.
Right. But I would think that it essentially establishes this sort of unspoken, like, for Hador, if Hador succeeds in what he's setting out to do, right? If he does in fact return, essentially establish himself as the leader of his people and bring them up into the north to come live in Dor Loman, then he would, again, I keep coming back to that phrase, right? The peer of Elven Lords, right? About how like he really would be at that point, still he leads this little squad of humans who I don't doubt are really scrappy and have obviously held their own, and they proved themselves at the very beginning. And I think that, we clearly are going to show them being sort of accepted as equals. Rogren clearly is going to be a big fan, right? So there will be, it's not like they're going to be second-class citizens or something and he needs to prove himself. But again, still, it would be a big deal, right? And, he would then, to be like, now he would be kind of like standing alongside, with Fingin kind of leading the elves in Mithrim and him leading his people in Dor Loman. And, the two of them would be not quite equals, but it would be much more like that. Like, he would really be taking a leap forward if he succeeds in this quest.
Yes, he has Fingolfin's respect at the beginning, but he doesn't have a land and he doesn't have a people that he's leading. So if he gains a people and brings them into the land, then he now has a new position, and it's a much more obvious position of authority than what he had before as just leader of some dudes.
Right. And now Hador, I'm going to assume that he's, well, but maybe I shouldn't assume. He is, one of the things that has happened to him in the last 3 years is I'm assuming he's like 100% on board with the war against Morgoth at this point. Like he's going to be the one of among all the humans, right? He's going to be like in all of the three kindreds, like the foremost voice for what the humans should be doing is like, we've got to help with the fight against Morgoth. Like it is our duty for our benefit as well as everybody else's. We cannot just shelter behind the elves because we can help. He knows better than anybody else that they can contribute, right? They actually can help. He has helped, right? So he's going to be a big part, right, of his appeal to the council is going to be, we can't just, this is not just a matter of us, finding peace with our neighbors and, getting our lands to raise our herds in safety, right? There's a larger duty that we have here. There's, for the good of our people, for the protection of everyone, we need to join with the elves and help, and join the war, right? Fight the war, not just shield behind it. And it's interesting because that's a tall order, right? I mean, that's a tough appeal to make. Like it's, so there's trouble with your neighbors. I've got a solution for that. Let's go up to the front lines of the battle and join a war instead. That'll be much better, won't it? Like that's a tough sell.
Exactly. So that's why he doesn't promise anything ahead of time. He knows there's a good chance this won't work, right. And he'll come back empty-handed with nobody, and it'll just be him and his guys.
Yeah.
But the desire to have something else happen is definitely there, and his recognition that things will be much better if he can convince the people to come on board. So he's going to do his best to sell that message.
Right. And I would have to think that he would have to be driven by some kind of, because I mean, there's no way that he could be approaching this or expect anyone else to approach this in a pure cost benefit analysis method. Right. Because
Hador's a very heroic person.
Yeah.
So he's definitely going to use the same approach Fingolfin used, which is, hey, I have an opportunity for you young men. Come on with me, and you can go fight with the elves against Morgoth.
Right.
Like, so Hador's gonna kind of have the same approach of like, look at what great good things we can do in the world. If you and I and all of us work together, this will be amazing. And
right. And we can do something that we can accomplish something that will mean something. And I'm assuming, by the way, that Stephen H was just saying exactly this, and I was just exactly going there, Stephen, because I agree completely. Andreth is going to be echoing his words, unbeknownst to her, right, in the next episode when she's gonna, or maybe not unbeknownst, but in any case, she's going to be echoing that, right? So this idea of we have a role to, like, it matters to humans. Like, it's not just about let's establish a peaceful place to live and be left alone. That's not all that there is, or is there all that there is? Isn't there more than that? I mean, that's got to be part of the part of what he's selling, right, at the council. That they can, their lives can mean something, their people can accomplish something. To be setting up what's going to be happening with the House of Hador in the following episode, and this whole sort of looming question. And it's kind of interesting, isn't it? The way that this gets sort of sandwiched between the two, right? On the one hand, we've got the people of Hador who are going to be taking up this exact question of like, look, it is not good. Even if we're happy and sheltered and safe, it's not good for us just to be lingering here and doing nothing. Like, it is best for us, even at the cost of danger, right? Better for us to move to the front lines, to a place where we're in danger of, I don't know, getting completely annihilated in an oncoming battle at some point, or virtually annihilated, right? Like, it's better for us to risk that, knowing that we're risking that, than linger here doing nothing. And then, but on the other end, right, on the other bookend of this episode, we've got Haleth, right? And her people saying, we just want to go off and be left alone. Now, it's, you know, the interesting thing is that her taking out Tevildo, right, sort of shows that they're still accomplishing something, right? It's not like they're running away from everything. And even just their mere attitude towards that, right? As they're like, hey, can we live here? You know, we're going to live here. And Thingol being like, I'm not sure about that. And then basically them kind of establishing themselves, and, you know, Beleg's reaction to their courage of, you know, going to take on the cats who have been a problem for Doriath for some time, you know, around Doriath for some time. Not to mention, of course, the whole, you know, Ethelos incident, you know, back in season 4. So, you know, Tevildo and his cats have been a problem for some time. And so even the Haladin, although they're not on the front lines, although they're not, you know, engaged in the war, still have shown themselves very willing, even when not established and not in a position of strength, to do something, right? And to put themselves out there.
Right. I mean, the Haladin have bravery, but I do think that Halath is a bit more pragmatic and calculating of a character. So when you were saying it's not just a cost-benefit analysis to decide, let's move to Dorloman, it's not. Halath's decision is closer to that of, look, here's what we can do, and here's what we will do, and here's what we're willing to do, and here we are.
Yeah.
Whereas with Hador, it's like, let me just gather you all together and tell you about this wonderful idea that I have.
Right.
It's a little bit more like that.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. It's pretty striking, but I love this theme. I love the way that we're kind of established. And also, of course, like, I'm remembering our overall theme of change as well, right? And how things go. Like, it's not enough just to establish a peaceful domain and then say, like, can't we just be left alone? Can't we just, you know, find a place where we can just live happily ever after? It's not like Middle-earth isn't, that's one of the things that the elves are perceiving, right? It's not a happily ever after kind of place. Like, it's just not. The elves can tell that in the years of the sun, things are changing, and they're changing in a particular direction over time, right? Like, that's perceptible. Like, you know, all is fading, all is, you know, the time is flowing away, and the humans are in their way even more aware of that. And so I love this idea of this kind of, now, of course, it's not that there is no more pragmatic argument that he has to make, right? I mean, there is a nice land waiting for them up in the north, right? You know, that he does have a kind of a practical appeal to make as well, right? Like, yes, okay, we have these wide lands here, but we've got problems on every side, right? You know, we've got problems on every side with neighbors with whom we just don't get along at all points, right? In fact, at no point do we get along with all of them. I mean, there's some of them slightly better than others, but there's no real winners among any of our neighbors here. And he can describe, I mean, Dorloman, again, just going back to the Silmarillion map with which I have, like, fallen in love again. Just even, like, being able to describe Dorloman. I mean, just, like, look at that, right? This, like, how safe does that look, right? You know, within this, like, on the one hand, they're going to be on the front lines, but it's not like they're going to be exposed, right? They're, you know, they're going to be sheltered behind the entire armies of the elves there, right? You know, inside their mountain, so he can be describing, you know, the plains of Dorloman, you know, where they can have their herds, but yet, like, be sheltered within the mountains. They would not have to worry about you know, any hostile neighbors, because there are no hostile, the only neighbors that they will have up there will be those who will be their strongest allies, and you know, nowhere will they be safer than you know, behind the shields of the Noldor up there in the north. And then the further argument, right? And we can contribute there, right? We can make that strong. We can protect you know, our lands and our families, and we can make that happen. It's again, at first it sounds kind of dubious, right? Like, hey, everybody, like, let's go up to the front lines and get into a war that you don't know anything about. Like, doesn't that sound like fun? That seems like a very, very hard sell. But when you start with Dorloman, right? You know, with this dedicated land, which can be all ours and will suit us really well, and which we can rule as our own, and you know, and then kind of work outwards from there, begins to sound a little bit more appealing.
Yeah, it starts even earlier than Hador trying to make any arguments, because when he arrives with his guys, they are dressed as elven warriors at this point. Like, they might have left as some teenagers who joined up with Fingolfin, but they're coming back completely outfitted, just like the Noldor, full armor and all that. And, you know, he's got the dragon helm on. So he's now a very impressive looking character compared to who he looked like 3 years ago when he left.
Yeah.
And that argument speaks for itself before he even opens his mouth.
Right. This sense of like, look how we have been upgraded. Like I can't help but remember that line, the line about, you know, Hurin and Huor when they return from Gondolin, right? Like, you return dressed as elf princes, right? You know, not like waifs of the wild. Yeah, like that, you know, they've been gone. Everybody might assume that they've been dead, right? I mean, I don't know if any funerals were held or anything while they were gone, but it's been a long time. It's been 3 years. You know, who knows if they're ever coming back again. And then not only do they come back, but wow, right? I mean, they come back and clearly are in a completely different class, you know, in that way of every, I mean, no one will have seen anything like any of their, I mean, I guess they will have seen it because they will have seen some of the elf lords, right?
I mean, Fingolfin was there 3 years ago when he recruited them, so they've seen Fingolfin dressed like that.
Right.
But, and, you know, they've met other elf lords. But to have their own guys dressed as elf lords, obviously Hador has some new friends.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, Nick was just quoting the other line that I was thinking of. Nick, I was about to refer to that one, which is, of course, the return of the travelers to the Shire at the end. You know, lordly, people called them, meaning nothing but good, right? Yeah. And the Dragon Helm. Can we talk about the Dragon Helm for a little bit? Like, because there are implications, right? That the Dragon Helm has some, it has an impact, right? That there's more. It's not just like a particularly nice helmet, like it, that there's, when you're wearing the Dragon Helm, it has, I mean, I think I know how I would model it if I were making it like a Dungeons and Dragons magical item, but like, and Tolkien doesn't think that way generally. And yet there is clearly an impact on the people who, you know, like there's this awe and command that is attached to it. I mean, I'm kind of wanting to, this seems to me like a really good opportunity to sort of make a big deal of the Dragon Helm, because so far the Dragon Helm, it's significant, right? But it's significant because we've seen its history, right? We saw it was made, we know it was made by, you know, by Telgar, the greatest of the dwarf smiths. And you know, we saw it being given a couple times, but like when it's being handed from one elf to another, they're all so snazzy, you know, that like this one particularly snappy helmet amongst the rest of what they have, it's not going to really stand out. But I've got to think, you know, Hador walks into the, you know, the crowd, the crowd parts around him at the Estelad, and he's wearing the Dragon Helm. Like when Hador stands up and speaks wearing the Dragon Helm, it's got to have, a real impact. You know, that's, and I wonder sort of how we could show that, because again, we need to build like a mythos of the Dragon Helm, and we don't have actually all that much time, especially since Hurin frustratingly doesn't wear it, right? We're told, which I guess, I mean, I think we should honor that, but, which again, I can only think of doing because he's got awesome hair, but, anyway.
We can't put it on him in the battle because then it's going to be lost in the battle.
Right.
So for Turin to get it, Hurin had to not wear it.
Right. He had to not wear it, certainly to the near knife. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, but like we don't have so very many chances to show off because it's not going to be in the near knife. We'll be able to, you know, we'll get it a few times, but what I'm thinking of here, like what I'm thinking of building, the scene I have sort of in mind is when Turin takes up the Dragon Helm again. That's a really important moment, you know, in his story when he puts on the Dragon Helm. And of course it reveals him to Morgoth, but it means a lot. It's a big deal for Turin to put on the Dragon Helm. And I want to make sure that we feel that, right? That we sort of associate like the appropriate things so that we have this, you know, we're kind of building this sort of mythic backstory of the Dragon Helm. Because of course, not only is the Dragon Helm itself important to Turin and those moments in Turin's character, you know, in both in Doriath and then later among the outlaws and things, but also that he. But the Glaurung connection, right? It's Glaurung on his head, right? So I mean, even like the obvious parallel of like Glaurung being above on the helmet above Turin's head, like Glaurung is going to be above Turin's head when he stabs him in the belly, right? I mean, there's a way in which the Glaurung on the helmet is, like, you know, in anticipation of so much of Turin's story, of like the ups and downs of Turin's story. So anyway, like I said, we need to build it, and this seems like a critical moment to build the legend of the Dragon Helm, and I'm trying to think of how to make the best use of it here.
Yeah, we definitely wanted it to give Hador access to the council.
Yeah.
So he's a 21-year-old guy. He wasn't there for 3 years. If it's a Council of Elders meeting, he doesn't necessarily have a seat.
Right.
But when he shows up wearing the Dragon Helm and is greeted the way he's greeted with the reaction of the people, then when he's like, hey, can I join the council? They have to say yes. So
right.
He kind of uses it to get in the door.
Right. Right.
So that's how we envisioned it playing a role, but he would take it off to speak at the council, probably.
Yes, probably. Could we do I don't know, maybe it's too much, but could we do a... Well, let me actually just start that by asking the question. How much drama do we envision? I mean, I know Bereg is going to do his thing, right? Bereg is going to say, I want nothing to do with it, and he's going to leave, right? So there's going to be this sort of critical moment. Do we imagine a kind of back and forth thing, like when it looks like Hador is not going to convince the folks, and then it kind of turns around and he's gonna... yeah.
Right. So there's maybe 4 main voices of the council, and one of them, of course, is Hador, saying, let's go to Dor-lómin. One of them is Bereg, saying, let's get out of Beleriand. I hear there's a war here. Mm-hmm. And then there's Amlach, who's really Sauron the whole time. Right. So Amlach is replaced by Sauron before the council begins.
Yes.
And early on in the council, Amlach's not saying a lot. Like, he's chiming in to support people's voices that he wants to support, but he's not exactly going front and center and saying, I'm gonna make my push for it. So he's just kind of nudging things early on. Once Bereg pulls out entirely, he doesn't just say, like, I think we should go. He's like, I'm leaving right now, and I'm taking my guys with me, and we're leaving Beleriand. Like, have fun with the rest of your council guys. So before the council's over, he leaves prematurely and removes all the people who were with him.
Right.
Which means Hador is now one of the stronger voices left.
Right.
At which point Sauron gets very nervous about the direction of this council. And that's when Amlach makes his actual... Well, first there's another event, but then at that point, Amlach makes his, you know what? The speech that's in the book, right?
Right, yeah,
Everyone was shocked to hear Amlach speak this way. Yeah.
Right.
And that, I think, would be the, oh, this could go very badly moment. And then Hador would come back from that and pull the council in the direction. So there's a little bit of back and forth, but it's not like we envisioned a council where Hador was getting shouted down the whole time, and at the end he like miraculously pulls out a final minute victory based on like a technicality in his argument.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I wasn't thinking of anything quite as sort of extreme as that, but yeah, okay. I'm thinking about, I don't want to obsess about the Dragon Helm, but again, I want to make, in my mind, the Dragon Helm is a really important, like, symbolic element of this episode, right? And I feel that it's, Hador wearing the Dragon Helm is like the symbol of this elf-human alliance, right? So I feel like him.
We do have one action sequence, as Nick pointed out. We didn't keep it all just talking. So when Sauron gets nervous about where things are going, he tells Therin Gwethel to assassinate Hador.
Right.
To remove his voice from the council. And obviously Hador survives this because...
Right. Still has kids to beget after all.
Yes. He's not going to get married for another 10 years. So clearly surviving type. But if you wanted to have him be wearing the Dragon Helm when she attacks him and have that protect him and save his life in the fight, like he's still going to get wounded, but not so badly that he can't stand up and give a speech afterwards. Right. So if you want the Dragon Helm to be on during that scene, we could certainly do that to demonstrate that it is powerful protection,
right,
against evil things. Like if you needed to have that.
Well, I'm thinking
element, not just I wear it to look cool.
Right. No, but I think it's actually primarily the looking cool that I'm focused on. Now, that it has also utility is certainly important. But okay, no, all right. Here's what I'm thinking. He rides in and he's wearing the helmet, right? And so like that's part of him wearing the helmet is part of the, like, people aren't just surprised, right? They're not just like, wow, don't you look snazzy? Like there's awe, right? There's, he commands this kind of instant respect. He has been, he's like transformed. But as you say, clearly he's going to take off the helmet to speak, right? He's not going to be walking around from inside his helmet in the thing. So when he gets to the council, he's going to take the helmet off, right? He's going to take the helmet off and hand it to his number one, right? And his number one's going to like hold the helmet while he's talking and stuff. I'm thinking of a moment, and after the fight, right? So he's wounded. He comes in. Bereg has left. Fake Amlach has done his thing, right? And he's going to come in and he's going to make his final appeal, right? So I'm thinking like when he does this, he puts the helmet on. Right, like either during or at the end of his speech, in his like final rallying speech, and when he puts on the helmet, right, the Dragon Helm at the end, and like basically calls for a decision, at that point, I'm thinking almost of like, Aragorn's line with the paths of the dead are come, I seek the paths of the dead, come with me who will, kind of line, right, that he delivers here. Like, I return to the north, come with me, who will. And he puts on the Dragon Helm and he delivers that line and the people all rally up, like to show that as like the him donning the helm as the turning point where clearly like he's basically just crowned himself. Right, which is going to be his crown, in fact, right? But to have that moment, have that kind of air of almost of coronation about it, right? And the acclaim of the people.
Yeah, I think that would be really good because we do need him to be declared the leader of his people by his people. He's been declared a leader by Fingolfin already. Like Fingolfin and Fingin put that on his head.
Right.
But he doesn't have a people to lead until they go along with it. So having him put it on and then his people acclaim him, I think would bookend that pretty well.
Yeah. And that would be a really nice visual image. Like, again, I'm thinking about, when like Turin among the outlaws, puts the Dragon Helm on again for the first time, that we should be remembering this moment when Hador put on the Dragon Helm, and all of the people followed him and everything. And even like the reaction among the outlaws when Turin puts it on can be kind of like this moment, in the council. It can be an echo of this moment. There are lots of things that would help to establish that connection some. And of course, because here's the other thing. Gosh, I totally did not intend to be so obsessed with the Dragon Helm. But anyway, here I am. The dragon, right? Like, the Glaurung, who's on the helmet, right, is all about the force of his will, right? His will just overpowering the wills of others. So the association between the Dragon Helm and the dragon is important, right? There's a similar kind of force of personality involved with the person who's wearing the dragon, but it's not the same, right? It shouldn't feel the same. It should, it has a different character, right?
Less evil, in fact.
Yes, that would be one way in which it's different, right? Yeah, it's not about domination. It's not about I'm gonna like erase your mind like he does to Nienor. But nevertheless, there's this powerful influence of other people, right? That is associated with the one who is wearing the Dragon Helm. So again, that's another thing that I'm wanting to kind of plant the seeds for, because the whole this theme of asserting my will and having that will sort of override the wills of others or count against the wills of others, that's like one of the whole big motifs of the entire Turin story, right? From Morgoth asserting his will over the line of Hurin, and Glaurung asserting his will over people, and Turin trying to become the master of fate, right? To assert his own will against the curse of Morgoth, right? And so like this question of like whose will is going to work out, right? Is Turin going to escape his fate, or is Morgoth's will going to dominate, in fact succeed in dominating his life? Is Glaurung going to succeed in asserting his will as he does? And of course, all of this ends, the culmination of this theme really is Hurin and Morwen, right? That she was not conquered, right? That's the in my mind anyway, that's like kind of like the final note of that story, right? Of that whole, which is about, like the assertion of will, right? Whether to dominate or to resist, like that's what it's, from the moment when Hurin and Morgoth are standing there, right, having their contest of wills, that's what it's all about, right? For him, his wife, and his children. Anyway, so that's another reason why I'm thinking about this, because again, the Dragon Helm is the most kind of central and powerful symbol of this, of that whole thing, right? Really kind of the focal point of that whole struggle. So I want to make sure that we're kind of thinking that through in that way. Yeah. Nick says, one thing I find interesting is that Hador kind of embodies all the things modern people find superficial about historical leadership, but he does it really well. You're right, Nick. There's a way in which he is being, he's sort of like Shakespeare's Henry V or something like that. Not exactly like Henry V, not exactly like a touch of Howl in the Night or something like that. But the once more into the breach, my friends, kind of historical leadership. I think, Nick, is the kind of thing that you're talking about, right? Right, as Nick says, he's a walking, talking cliche and still awesome. He's got to establish this idea of like that there is a higher purpose. And remember, this has been a theme from episode 1, right? Beor and his people had a mission, right? They were driven, they had a vision. And it was like to achieve something higher, right? That there's more than just like survival in this world. They're seeking something in the West, something that was higher and greater, than themselves. And Hador basically is coming back and saying, again, it's not the same people and they don't have the same vision, but he's basically like, I found it. Like it turns out it's not peace and safety, right? Which is what, maybe everybody thought, we were looking for, right? What we found is a purpose. What we found is meaning, that like we can accomplish something. We can be a part of something really, really big. Turns out there's like an evil god in the north. And we're like, fighting on the side of the angels here against, the embodiment of evil sitting up there in the north. That's a pretty big deal, right? And we get to be a part of that. Like we get to help, to be to play a significant role in this fight, like, compared with which anything else, we would do is, meaningless. It's lots of high ideals involved here. Yeah, Nick Michael says cliches have to come from somewhere, right? That's it. Yes, exactly. He's the actual hero, from which these ideas which fall into cliches sort of come from. But you're right, Nick. He really is like the example of the hero king. I mean, that's exactly the role that we wanted for him. And I think that's, again, the extent to which Hador becomes this iconic figure, right? The sort of the myth of Hador and what it means to talk about, the House of Hador. It really should have that kind of echo, right? Which will attach to people like Hurin and Turin, all the way down the line. And Tur, of course, and then on to Aredhel. I like that. Okay, so let's talk about Bereg a little bit more. Bereg's deal is essentially he is just I want to be left alone and I don't want any part of this stuff. Like, all I want is, fields in which to, graze my herds without being bothered by elves who tell me I'm crossing into their lands. And, if my pigs go over there, they'll shoot me in the face. Like, is it, I just want to be left the heck alone. Is that basically the Bereg line?
Yes. Bereg is from that community that had its interaction with the elves of the Syrians.
Yeah.
That resulted in that. So when Galadriel was being the go-between with Doriath and Assyrian and the people of Estolad, it was Bereg's people she was talking to. Okay. And so his opinion is very much of, wow, these elves just come in here and tell us how to run our lives all the time. And, could we maybe not?
Right. Right.
So yes, Bereg wants to be left alone. He wants to have space and freedom and the ability to live their lives. And if their neighbors aren't going to do that, why stay in Beleriand? They can always go back east. Yeah.
So the vision of Bereg and the vision of Hador, the primary difference is one of purpose, of meaning, right? I mean, both of them ultimately are saying, I have a solution to, we're in, on the one hand, these are nice lands that we're in here in this big white space on the Silmarillion map, right? This is a nice spot here, but it's awkward. It's awkwardly positioned, and we've got awkward neighbors all around, right? And just kind of continuing to hang out here long term, this is not working out great, right? So both of them, both Bereg and Hador, have solutions to this problem, right? Hador says, okay, the problem is it's the wrong elves, right? We need to go hang out with the right elves, and this will solve our problem. And Bereg says, we just need to like, this was a bad idea. Let's go back over the mountains and leave. So they have, from a pragmatic standpoint, each one has, and both of them are suggesting a long and perilous journey, right? So even on that level, they're sort of equivalent, just in opposite directions. The real difference, right? The real kind of dividing point is this question of purpose, right? And ultimately Bereg is saying, nothing to do with any hyper. I just want to, tend my cows and not get shot in the face. Is that so much to ask? Right. And so Hador's appeal against that is, this very different kind of appeal, right? This, the lives of men are meant for more than raising cattle and not getting shot in the face, right? We have a higher destiny. We can have a higher destiny. So yeah, it is a very interesting, sell. And now we are setting up the awkward elf interactions with Amlach. Well, we'll come back to that later, right? The Amlach's issues with the neighbor elves, right?
Right. So yeah, if we have Bereg be the example of the interactions with the elves of Assyrian, Amlach is the one who has had interactions with the Fëanorians.
Right.
Prior to all of this. So that's forming his opinions of, wow, these elves are really stuck up.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I can't imagine why they would have that impression.
Right.
Then we did put another random elder in the council because we realized that having everyone come in with their ideas, say their part, and then leave didn't look like anything happened. So we needed one random elder to start out with saying, Hador, you young upstart, you don't know what life is really about, and then shift over to, hey, I'm going to go to Dor-lómin with all these guys. And so we made that voice have a problem with the elves of Doriath.
Okay.
And their secret
Sure.
order that no one's allowed to cross and all that. So he doesn't trust the elves because they're so secretive.
Right.
Essentially.
Right. Hiding in their magic forest and yeah. I mean, in fact, we could even, I would imagine, even if we didn't try hard, his language would sound a lot like the Rohirrim talking about Lothlorien, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that they're bad, they're just really suspiciously
right.
secretive.
Suspiciously magical, in their freak you out if you come too close to it forest. I mean, it's all kinds of spooky what is going on there in Doriath from the human perspective. I mean, it's I would even go so far as it's hard to imagine how the humans who live on the edge of Doriath could not conclude that those who live inside that forest are seriously sketchy, right? Because I mean, like, who would do that? Like, the girdle has got to completely freak them out, right? If they come to the conclusion that there's some that the elves who live in there are these evil sorcerers whose purposes they don't know and can't trust, who could possibly blame them for coming to that conclusion, right? I mean, unless they've actually met Beleriand, who is obviously the unofficial ambassador to everybody who has a decent opinion of Doriath. But it's yeah, I mean, without interacting with them, which most of them won't be interacting with the elves, right? It's in fact the logical conclusion. It's not logical to think based on what you would just see on the fringes of the forest of Doriath. Oh yeah, I'm sure that they are very good and very noble and have the most excellent of intentions and are just protecting themselves and are remaining strictly neutral with regard to us and bear us no ill will whatsoever. Who would draw that conclusion if you just came to the edge of the girdle of Melian without any explanation and without any word of welcome or warning or anything like that, right? So yeah, no, that makes absolute perfect sense. And I agree, it's nice if we have that random elder number one, with let's see, what would we call him in the credits? First elder, something like that. Anyway, we would, so having him, because if we have him and we have Amlach and then we have Bereg, we have all of the different boundaries represented, right? The Fëanorian side, the Doriath side, and the Assyrian side.
The other boundary, of course, is with Nan Elmoth, and real Amlach gets to deal with that. Right.
Exactly. Now, by the way, I thoroughly approve. It is absolutely logical. In fact, I thoroughly approve of the whole assassination of Hador subplot. I mean, that seems so logical as to be like absolutely compelling. Like, how could Sauron not think that? I mean, he came here with a plan, to this council with a plan, right? And then there's this like random dude with the dragon helm, and you know, like this was not part of the plan, right? And if there's a I mean, there could not be a more obvious fly in the ointment of Sauron's plans for the Estolad Council than this guy, right? And not only that, he's like completely isolated. Like, he's unique among the rest of these people. It's not like he's, the spokesperson for a faction among the people, right? I mean, he's this completely outside force saying totally unexpected, really surprising, and not to mention maximally bad for Sauron's plan things, right? So yeah, like, you off him, right? Clearly, like, that's how you, if Sauron didn't think of that, it would seem like a plot hole, right? So yeah, I thoroughly approve of the assassination attempt. Tell me more about the assassination attempt. So how does it go down? Like, how does she
go ahead and switch over to the B plot so we can
okay,
get
yeah, let's switch over to the B plot. Okay.
I think that should have all the Sauron
all right,
stuff.
okay. So let's go to, we might as well back up and start at the beginning of the Sauron stuff here. Okay. So we've got Amlach being trapped. Well, we'll come back to the Aol angle of this in a little bit. But anyway, now, hang on, I can't leave it behind totally yet. Thuringwethil knows what's going to happen?
Right. So Nan Elmoth is surrounded by the Proto-Girdle, and we know that Sauron's creatures have tried to get into Doriath multiple times after the girdle went up with Tevildo and presumably also Thuringwethil's vampires and the spiders and all that. So they presumably know that Ael's woods are just as protected.
Right.
Or similarly protected, maybe not just. So if you intrude in Doriath, you get tangled up in girdle stuff. If you intrude in Nan Elmoth, you get tangled up in whatever Ael tangles you up in. And Thuringwethil's like, that'll keep him busy.
Okay. So,
Because they just need him out of the way for a few days while the council happens. Like, they don't really care what happens to him.
So it's kind of a venture on her part, right? You know,
Yes, this would be a lot more effective if she left him dead in a ditch somewhere.
So why doesn't she? That was one of the questions that I had.
Presumably someone could find him dead in the ditch and that would ruin things. So as long as he's just missing, then he's not actually missing because he's walking around the camp.
Okay. So just as part of the okay.
Is there a way to make this maybe more opportunistic?
Yeah, if it's too premeditated, then I mean it does seem to invite the question, like, what did she not think to just bring a shovel? You know, like because like clearly if you're gonna swap for somebody, right? You kill them, bury the body, then swap for them, and then there's no chance that like they're gonna awkwardly come stumbling back into camp while you're still there.
Right. The main reason she doesn't kill him is because Tolkien has him alive at the end of this.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly.
But I agree with you that if we make it seem a little bit more opportunistic, maybe it won't seem like a bad plan on her part so much as taking advantage of.
Suppose they just wander in and get trapped, and Thuringwethil spies that this has happened, and then reports back and says, "Hey, we have an interesting opportunity." So maybe they intended all along. Maybe they're just seizing upon this opportunity to like get in there.
That would explain it.
They just need one guy that's recognized who would have enough of a following at the council. So Sauron just needs a guy with a council seat, which is what Amlach is here.
But the downside of this is now it seems like Sauron showed up with no plan.
Right. Well, I mean, again, if plan A, right, plan A is to find random council member walking by his own self, right, club him in the head, bury the body, and substitute for him. It's not like that requires a great deal of setup. I mean, that's plan A, right? And then the Amlach situation arises, right?
Well, yeah, so the question is, why would they go into the scary forest? Because, Estelad is right near Nan Elmoth, like the encampment is, but presumably everyone who goes to that encampment knows to stay out of Nan Elmoth. So we had the motivation be that there was a voice calling out for help from the woods. So, he goes in to rescue someone else and gets entangled.
Is there a reason? Would there be a reason that Eöl would do it on purpose? Like, would Eöl... Because I'm thinking ahead, of course, well, not ahead, but I'm thinking aside to our C plot and Eöl's thing. Would Eöl be... I mean, obviously, it's not like he's going to be like, inviting visitors or something like that. But would he be curious about humans? Would Eöl just be like, let me capture some specimens and see what these humans are all about? I mean, could it be motivated by Eöl in that way?
I wouldn't see a reason for him to try and pull humans into his forest. He's so protective and territorial, and this encampment's been happening on his doorstep for years. So
Right.
if he ever wanted to go out and talk to the humans, he always could. I would think he's more of those kids on my lawn about the whole thing.
Right.
He hates Estolad on principle.
Right. No, I would think he would. Yeah, I would think he would. Yeah. And anyway, then we get into the issue of that it's just like he just so happens to do that at precisely this moment. It does become a little oddly serendipitous.
Right. So with Thuringwethel luring them in and then taking off from the trees herself in vampire form, we know what happened immediately.
Right.
So it doesn't take as much setup of the bad guys saying, okay, so what we're going to do is.
Right. No, it does. I mean, it works.
I realize it raises some questions.
Yeah.
What if it's like kind of, sort of middle ground? They're there. They're trying to figure out, like, okay, we need to get somebody out of the way. And then these guys happen to be out on, I don't know, they're on a hunting trip or something, and they're a little too close to Nan Elmoth. And Thuringwethel sees this and seizes upon the opportunity and just tries to nudge them a little bit, so then she flies in and does the voice and gets them trapped, and then Eöl's grumpy because there's people intruding. So maybe she didn't come in okay, here's my plan, I'm gonna lead them into Nan Elmoth, but she sees I could probably get away with it. She sees the opportunity.
Right. So we were thinking that if Estolad was encampment, right, that Amlach's group has pitched their tents closest to the forest. Mm-hmm. So it is opportunistic to go after Amlach right at the edge of Nan Elmoth like that. Right. That was how we put him in proximity, and then she just needs to lure him a little bit into the forest.
I think that works.
If he's... How many people going for? Is it just him by himself?
A couple friends.
A couple friends.
With him. I forget if we were sending his son. I think possibly.
Another thing.
Not his son. So I forget if the son is trapped in the forest or in the council.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you want to swap for somebody, you want to take them out quietly, right? You don't want any, noise about that. So if it's, I mean, that would be a reason not to just attack him, right? Is that, if he's, well protected, or he has, if he's paranoid or whatever, in which case, again, you just be so why choose him? Surely not 100% of the elders are super careful and super paranoid. At least one of them is going to be staggering drunkenly back to his tent alone some night, right? It's, yeah. It's tricky. I feel like I don't dislike the proposed plan. It feels like it could be better. It feels like there must be a more elegant solution that would accomplish more things better. But I can't think of what it was. So what I'm starting with here is thinking about what it suggests about Sauron and Thuringwethel and their plans. Is there some work we can do there to sort of show the reason they handle Amlach this way, that it's kind of indicative of them, right? This is it teaches us something about them and about their characters and who they are, that they operate this way instead of the club him over the head and bury him in a shallow grave way of approaching this, which again is a method, right? I mean, it would be, of course, it would turn out to be a better method than the one that they took. So why do they do it this way? Like, what does it show us about them that they choose this instead of?
So just one. I mean, you're right that like these kinds of resourceful villains, it seems like they would be able to make a body disappear. But it's kind of true that like even without the body, there is sort of this issue that if you bump him off, he's going to mysteriously disappear shortly after the council, and everybody's going to wonder why. Right. And also it leaves open this chance that yeah. Whereas if he then shows back up and then also says like, well, that wasn't me, I didn't say that. Like it creates confusion and mistrust.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do have an opportunity for Sauron and Thorongwerthel to discuss their plans a little bit, because the way we're going to introduce that Sauron has replaced Amlach is that Amlach will be walking through the camp and human Thorongwerthel will be walking with him after the forest scene. So it'll be like, that is probably not real Amlach. And so they're talking about the council and their plans. Sauron could ask her, so what happened to this dude? And she can say, oh, he's lost in the woods for a while, we're fine. And Sauron could make it clear that his intention is, when Amlach comes back, if the council goes the way they want and he can foment rebellion among the men, that he'll just put the whammy of, not so bottomless dread on Amlach and let Amlach leave the armies and he can get out of there. Because he's not going to commit to a 20-year spy mission.
Right.
To impersonate Amlach forever. So he does real Amlach to lead the group later.
Right.
And if he just mentions it casually to Thorongwerthel, the fact that it never happens won't matter. Yeah.
I mean, look, the club over the head in the shallow grave is a very Gothmog-ish solution to the problem, right? I mean, it's not how Sauron rolls. And yeah, if we think about it in that way, like he's not going to cast aside a tool that could be useful later on, right? So if he thinks of this forest situation as like a way to warm up Amlach for the spell of relatively deep dread that he is going to put upon him afterwards, then yeah, I mean, I could see that being the plan. But of course, it invites the question: why doesn't he just
just do that to begin with?
Start with the whammy, yeah.
Well, I also wonder. I kind of wonder if there's part of me that wonders if maybe if you think back to like what this reads like in the Silmarillion, the published Silmarillion. It's really short, and we don't dwell on it. We move on quickly, but it's super eerie, right? And like that passage where it's like, oh, and by the way, later on, Amlach showed up and was like, that wasn't me. I didn't say any of that.
Right.
People are like, what the heck? Like, if you start thinking about like, if you did spend some time dwelling on that, like, what would that do to people? And what would that do to like the community? It wouldn't be good. People would be looking around saying like, anybody could be replaced with this guy claims he was replaced by this doppelganger, and it seems plausible because he's saying completely different things from what he said before. How do we know that other people haven't been replaced? Who can I trust? What's going on? To me, it seems like for Sauron, that's a win right there. You just like stir up all this distrust. Like, how could a society function if that's how people are viewing each other? So like, you don't even need to remember. You just mess with these people for a while.
Yeah, that is true. It could even be part of the plan, right? Mm-hmm. To have him come back later on. Because that is a kind of Sauron-ish plan, isn't it? Like, let's just sow, distrust and unease on this level, which of course could come mapping back. You know who else doesn't look like he used to look and doesn't talk like he used to talk as Hador, right? So, you know, it's you know, I don't know that anything's going to come of that, but I mean, but again, you know, the idea that you know, you can't try, and of course, it's only then one other step to say, and this is all like, look at like, this is what we're living in, this place where we're, you know, we like the invisible archers will shoot you in the face on the one side, and like the magic elves in spooky terror forest on the other side, and then the even spookier, more weirdly terrifying forest on the other side, and then, you know, Mr. like high and mighty with his, you know, whatever, like.
And then the Feanorians are the good guys in this scenario.
Exactly, right. They're like the normal ones, right, who are just going to stomp on your face, right, with their metal boots, right? But anyway, I mean, it's like clearly this is they are in a land of wonders. Like they are clearly in a land of wonders. Marvels which are not in their favor generally, right? And so like the just general spookiness and resistance to the whole fairy element, right, of the land that surrounds them, that would certainly be something I can easily imagine Sauron saying, I want to play on that, right? I want to play on that. So
another factor to consider here too is why design this extremely subtle plan and then try to murder Hador? And I think the explanation there is that this plan works really well, and then Hador comes in and it's pretty clear it's going the wrong direction for Sauron. It's like so much for my subtle plan. I thought people were going to be pulled apart. This guy's uniting them. Maybe Sauron even sort of can detect that there's something more going on, Dragon Helm and all that. He's like, okay, never mind subtle plan. Let's bump off Hador. Maybe we can pin it on Amlach or something. But there has to be a reason that he decides to take that step after sort of trying to go the more subtle route.
Yeah, because it is. I mean, again, as I said, it seems screamingly obvious. Like Hador is clearly your problem. You get rid of Hador, this whole situation is gonna. It's not like they're gonna go up into the north without him, right? Yeah. So you know, but I agree, it is a shift.
He could try to put the whammy, the spell of not spellless dread on Hador, but because of the Dragon Helm, nothing happens. And then Plan B is the assassination attempt. Like, it would be something else to add in. I'm not sure we have a lot of room for it, but while they're at the council, like, fake Amlach could confront Hador and be repelled, essentially.
Right.
If you wanted to highlight the Dragon Helm being awesome.
What if it's not an assassination attempt? What if Sauron is trying to whammy him? Right, he's trying to do something more subtle than just kill him. Because there's always the chance when somebody comes in being as heroic as that, right? That if they suddenly die tragically, that can still lead to unfortunate consequences, right? That might be the only circumstance in which they'd go north without him, right?
Well, no, suspicion is perfect. That's what Sauron wants, is suspicion.
Right. No, but I'm thinking about like the rallying behind his cause. I mean, like it might undermine the undermining of him, right? If you make a martyr of him at that particular moment. But and again, like the way that Sauron and Thuringwethil operate is more, I mean, they would be more likely to try to whammy him somehow, wouldn't they? And to have him, to show him be proof against that somehow, to show him resist them or him in some way, which could then lead to, like, he could then attack them, right? Hador could then attack Sauron or Thuringwethil.
Our goal was to have Hador not figure out that Amlach is the villain.
Right.
So that he's not specifically arguing against Amlach as, and you're an agent of Morgoth.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one reason we hadn't put Amlach in the attack. We had just put Thuringwethil in that attack.
Right.
And presumably it's a sneak attack, you know.
Sure. But no, I'm thinking it wouldn't have to, he wouldn't have to reveal the Amlach thing. right? I mean, he could change his form again, like to look like a
Yeah.
random person, and then we could just show him resuming Amlach's form afterwards, or something like that, so that we know for sure who it was.
You're right.
Not that there's so many candidates, but anyway, yeah. So I agree. We definitely don't want Hador to be confronting Amlach, knowing that he's confronting an agent of Morgoth. Absolutely, that's very clear. But of course, actually, that's part of the danger of having the attack at all, right? Because if Hador is assaulted, he's going to use that, right? I mean, it's going to be a big part of what's, and like our enemy in the north has attempted to strike me down, like they are among us even now, their agents are among us even now, and I was attacked, and the enemy in the north fears us. You can see him turning it into a really nice speech, if we want to go there, but it does make.
Yes, that's where we went with it.
Okay, yeah, that's where you went with it. Yeah,
He shows up having been attacked and was like, "Look, guys, we need to do it my way." So yes, it does backfire. The question is, if we could pull off a way to make the attack seem like it's going to be an attempted mind attack, and then when that fails, Thuringwethel stabs him with a knife or something.
Right. What if Thuringwethel? Yeah, so, Nick has a really good point. He says, what if it's Thuringwethel who tries to do it and fails? Because he says that way we're not saying that Sauron can be put off by a human, however awesome. Right. Yeah. I mean, we want to be cautious with that.
Yeah, we don't want to steal Luthien's thunder here.
Yeah, no, we don't want to steal Luthien's thunder.
I have a quick question about timing. What happened first? Hador showing up and giving his clutching his side, giving his grand speech, and pointing out that the attempt on his life failed, and clearly the enemy is meddling. Or Amlach showing up and saying, by the way, that wasn't me. I didn't say any of those things. Because I think I don't know. This logistically might not work, but there's part of me that thinks it might be more effective if Amlach returns first, and that freaks people out. And it seems like, and you could create some dramatic tension with the audience too, where maybe we don't know if Hador survived. And Amlach shows up, and it kind of looks cutting out the way Sauron expected. People are freaked out. They're like, "What are you talking about? Man, we were just here. Oh no, doppelgangers who we trust." And then Hador resolution to all that. And the reason why nothing comes of it is Hador shows up and says, "No, he's right. The enemy was here amongst us, but their plot has failed, and we're better than this. We're going to pull together. We're going to go stop." And then that's when people get all excited. Then I don't know if logistically this works, but I think that dramatically that could work really well.
The logistic issues are that then you'd have two Amlachs at the council at once, because Sauron's not going to leave as fake Amlach until the people choose Hador and it's over.
Yeah, that's true.
So, which leads to the "you're not really me" in real life confrontation, which is maybe not where we were going. But the advantage of having Amlach come in after it's all over. So the council has happened, they've acclaimed Hador, the people are packing up to move out, and Amlach walks back in like, "Wait, how long was I gone? Because I was just stuck in Ferry." And everyone tells him what happened. His reaction at that point to what he missed is more of "but that wasn't me." And It's a personal reaction, because if Amlach tells all the people there's an agent of evil here that we have to go fight, then it's Amlach who convinces the people they should move to the north, and it's Amlach who has united everybody. And the whole idea was that Hador's supposed to do that with his message. So we wouldn't want it to be Amlach like just walking in and doing that. So that's why he doesn't go with Hador. He specifically goes and joins the Feanorians.
Right.
So he's doing his own. He has his own personal reaction to that betrayal, separate from what Hador did at the council.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not sure it's what you were looking for.
Yeah, I can see that. I like that. I mean, I agree with Dave that there is definitely some interesting opportunity for like more complex kinds of tension and suspense if the Amlach reveal is happening, you know, is kind of overlapping with the Hador story there. If it's less, I mean, it definitely kind of makes the plot cleaner, right, to separate them in the way that you have, right? Right. Though I think exactly what Dave is suggesting is that if we muddy that up a little bit more, it gets like more complicated and more interesting, which I agree. I think it does. But yeah, it is. It would be trying to do a lot for sure. And
it's also it's like I think to your point, Marie, it's like you know, sort of what story do we want to tell? I'm hung up on that, just the like you know, sort of weird that weird sort of line at the end where it describes like everyone's reaction to Amlach coming back.
Yeah.
The tale just being like totally weirded out. And I kind of feel like I feel like if everyone's like if Hador's already come back and announced like the enemy was here or he tried to murder me, and everyone's like, oh, let's get that guy. I'm not coming back in and saying like, hey, I think you know, or you know, saying like, oh yeah, somebody was impersonating you. You know, there isn't going to be any of that, like people being weirded out because people like they know, they understand what happened. There's no mystery. We get it. Yeah, Sauron was here. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, I'm glad we thought you were dead. Good. So it's like it's just a different story, but it maybe does give an opportunity to do something with Amlach as opposed to showing the impact of that people. So I think it works also, and it is like. Something tells me what I was pitching is like it's going to be too much to try and accomplish in one episode.
Yeah. And I mean, and it is a departure. I mean, the return of real Amlach, who reveals that it was not him who made the speech before, is in the text given as a part of the argument of the council, right? That those who were in favor of joining with the elves say, well, okay, so like this pretty much takes the bottom out of your there is no enemy in the north argument, right? This at least we know that there is in fact an enemy in the north. You know, so the reveal, you know, the reveal that real Amlach was not the one who made that speech and that there's you know, an evil enemy doppelganger among them, you know, with exactly that kind of creepy response, you know, effect that Dave was saying, is part of the like council proper in the text. So I mean, there's definitely precedent for using it that way, but yeah, it's but there is a lot going on. I want to go back to Thuringwethel and her attack on Hador. What if, I think one of the things that would, I think one of the things that was bugging me a little bit about that is that it seems, even if the conclusion Hador must die seems obvious, right? And seems like an obvious and clean solution to Sauron's suddenly developing problem here, I'm just going to assault him, does not seem like a Thuringwethel solution to that problem, right? Because that's not her MO. You know, she doesn't just attack folks. Even sneaky, I mean, has she ever done that? What have we seen her doing? We've seen her impersonating folk and deceiving people. Right. We saw her leading. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, her interaction with Círdan last season was one of the more significant things that she's done.
And in the Merith Addothad, right, as well, with Sauron. And then spying, right? We see her change. So shape-shifting is like been her primary thing, right, so far, including the shape of the vampire bat. And so we've seen her flying around, right? So we've seen her spying. We've seen her shape-shifting and lying, right? And manipulating people very effectively, especially Círdan, as you said. That was the scene I was thinking of too. Is assassin in her wheelhouse? Like, is that part of her portfolio exactly? Like, I'm not sure it is. What if it would seem
she and Sauron do have to fight off some giant spiders at one point.
That's
so
true.
we do see that interaction.
Right.
So it's not like she's never been in a fight.
Right. She has some combat capability. Right. So.
Right. But I agree that that's not her go-to typically. That's not what we usually see from her.
We could circle this back around to our initial Amlach problem and say, basically use the luring away of Amlach at the beginning as a setup for what she's going to try to do to Hador, right? She's going to try to lure him away and do away with him one way. Maybe, hey, Nick, maybe we can do it both ways. Maybe we can have, so Sauron is waiting right outside the camp. And the plan is, why would he do that? I know why. Because Hurin's with his posse, right? Like, he's got his peeps around him all the time, right? So Sauron's not going to waltz into Hador's tent and be like, whammy, right? Because that's awkward, right? So Thuringwethel's job is to get him out alone from the camp. And when he's out alone from the camp, he's going to whammy him. And then he's going to whammy him so that then he's going to have whammied Hador go back to the council tomorrow and be like, I changed my mind. Morgoth is awesome. Or whatever he's going to say, right? He's going to say something devious and horrible. But that's Sauron's plan, right? Sauron and Thuringwethel's plan. And so Thuringwethel's job is lure him away from the camp, right?
So obviously Amlach's not alone out in Nan Elmoth. He's got some of his guys with him. So there's some missing people in Amlach's camp right now. Not Amlach, but the rest of his people. There's a few missing. So Thuringwethel, who's been hanging around fake Amlach, could tell Hador about someone who's gone missing and how she needs his help to come rescue somebody. So that would be pretty parallel to the Amlach running off to rescue somebody in the woods thing. And remind the audience that, there is actually an issue with the missing persons situation.
Right. Yeah. So what would have to happen then in order to avoid the situation that Nick, I think, is wise to want to avoid, which is like a face-to-face confrontation between Hador and Sauron, in which Hador defies Sauron, right? We don't want that. So he'd have to not get there. So he would have to catch on, resist, overcome Thuringwethel's deception / temptation / whatever she's doing, and then he would have to recognize that he's being lured off by an agent of Morgoth, and he would attack her and she'd fight back. She could still wound him, right? Because as you say, it's not like she's totally combat capable. I don't see I'm gonna jump him and beat him up as her, plan A. There doesn't seem in her idiom, right?
Okay. Yeah, she can definitely lure him away in that scene, and as he catches on is when it deteriorates. We have to make sure that the initial plan got voiced at some point prior to that if we're gonna have it change in media res.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I have another streamlined proposal. What if in both cases Thuringwethel really is just trying to lead them away and murder them? And here's the risk of this could make Thuringwethel look ineffectual. But in the first case, Amlach is able to fight or escape. He just happens to wind up in Ael's part of the world.
He runs away from her into Nan Elmoth.
And then Thuringwethel's like, all right, good enough. Well, especially if they have prior experience of that's not a great place for us to go either. Or that, it's like Yeah, I'm from Bethel. I had to. I could probably fight my way out of Aredhel's traps, but I'm too busy. I got better things to do, and that'll keep Amlach busy, which is that was the goal anyway. And then in the second case, she then once again attempts to lure Hador away to let her in, and in his case, he just like fights her off. At least then, now we have a very simple, streamlined plan. Lead away, murder, and it just happens to fail twice.
Fail twice in a row. Yeah, that's the trick, right? Is that, and
During Gretel will be on probation for this.
right. And the first time, but as you say, the first time she's like, good enough. Right, like I'll take Plan B, get him lost in Nan Elmoth. Right, that still does the job, right? So that's not a complete fail.
I don't know if this is what we want for Gretel, but you could do the deceitful, bumbling bad guy thing. It sounds like, did you take care of Amlach? Yeah, taken care of.
Yeah, totally gotten out of the way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, we can't have her lying to Sauron because she is like his most trusted lieutenant. So like clearly, like we don't want to undermine her to that extent. Yeah. It's true that the Thuringwethel failing twice is a bad look, though. I mean, if we wanted to do this and we wanted to help it, prevent her looking too bad, she could kill the other guys, right? I mean, like she could succeed. She could lure off like the 3 or 4 of them, and succeed in killing the other 3, right? And then Amlach alone escapes, and ends up having to flee. And that would explain, of course, why he's fleeing into super creepy dark forest, as alternative to like being murdered by like freaky ninja lady. So like that seems that would explain his rationale for running into Nan Elmoth.
If she's attacking a group, maybe. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you've been having strange audio problems all night, and now it's given out entirely. We just have no Dave audio at all. Huh. Weird. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think of this chain of failures concept for Thuringwethel?
I think in the first case we're going to see her attack deception on Amlach without having any preview of what she's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we only find out later when she reports to Sauron, like, well, didn't quite go as planned, but he is taken care of, then it's like, oh, she was trying to do something else. So that would be the only time it would come up. We would just see it happen from Amlach's point of view on screen initially. So it wouldn't seem like a failure because Amlach is trapped in the woods.
Right.
And then for the second one, she's going to wound Hador.
Right.
Who then comes back to the council. So she is going to fail, but the fact that Hador is wounded will feel dangerous to the audience. So she won't feel weak or useless, I don't think, even if he does get away. I don't think she's a complete failure here.
Right. She won't look bumbling exactly. What if he could be like pretty seriously wounded. Like, she could even think he's dead or something, right? I mean, there could be some kind of, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how to manage that, but.
Yeah, I think if she leaves him for dead and then he gets up and walks away,
it looks worse.
Then she is fumbling because there was no reason she couldn't finish him off while he was down. Right. Like that feels like a clear, she didn't finish her job.
Right.
Whereas if she goes to attack him and he fights her off, then that just means he's a warrior, which we already knew about him. So no shame in that. So I feel like.
Yeah. And his guys could come in and come to his aid and stuff, and then they make it back to the camp and everything. Yeah, we could make that be like a heroic survival by Hador situation rather than a failure by Thuringwethel situation. And as you say, if we're showing the first scene from Amlach's perspective, it's not going to be obvious that it was a failure at all in that way, especially if she comes in and succeeds in killing his guys. Is it going to undermine the sea plot, to which we should probably get relatively soon, if only Amlach survives?
The advantage of having more than one human lost in the woods is they can talk to one another.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just Amlach by himself wandering through a creepy woods.
Right.
So it would be better if at least one other guy survives.
Right.
But she can kill somebody. I'm
Right.
fine if there's a dead body.
Okay.
That she
right.
does bury
Yeah.
in a shallow grave. Because apparently
That's
he's
right.
really wanted to do that.
we can show that she's not completely hopeless when it comes to corpse disposal. So there we go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Does Dave have audio?
I kind of like that. I don't know. What is the state of Dave's audio?
All right. How is it? Is it any better?
Hey, that's way
Yes.
better.
Much better.
All right. I
Excellent.
think I figured it out. I'm not sure if my webcam's sharing now.
Oh, it was. And then as soon as you said that, it went, oh, there it is. It's back again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's not showing it on my window, but whatever. Good enough.
Yeah.
We can see
So
you.
where did we leave it?
So we're
Where did we
thinking
leave it?
we're thinking of the semi-competent Thuringwethel, whom, if we show the scenes from the right angle, is going to look pretty competent. Like basically, she will succeed in killing some of and driving off Amlach and the rest of them the first time, and she will lure Hador away and then attack him once she gets him by himself, but he will fight her off like this. So it will be a, Hador being awesome rather than Thuringwethel being incompetent kind of situation. And I think if we show his people rallying to him as well there, I like the effect of because it's not just that he is personally awesome. It's not just he's a personally awesome fighter, but it's him as leader, right? That is so important about him. So if his people come rallying to his cause and save his life, that's bonus points for him, right? That puts him in precisely the position we want him to be in, which is the valued and excellent general and leader whose men are,
Right. So their fight is just interrupted before she's able to kill him.
Exactly. She would probably have succeeded in killing him. He stays alive for long enough, right? And maybe, I don't know, maybe he's got a horn or something. I don't know what. Anyway, but his guys come and help him, and he escapes. And we still would have to explain in some sense, I guess. I feel like there would still have to be some explanation why Sauron himself was not directly involved, like why he just left that to Thuringwethel. I don't know.
Well, one thing I was thinking with Amlach, what if we, especially if there's a group, what if she has some lackeys, and that way any failures could be blamed on them.
we need other lesser bad guys to throw under the bus.
yeah. And then for Hador, it's like she does that one herself. She's like, okay, this guy, I gotta take him out myself.
Yeah,
and so then he looks heroic.
I kind of like the idea. So if this is the first time that we basically do introduce the idea of Thuringwethel as assassin, basically, if this is almost we've seen her in combat before with Giant Spider, right? But if this is one of the first times we see her operating in this, and when I want to, I am also stealth ninja woman who can kill 5 people at once, that. That's, I think, a fine angle for Thuringwethel, to emphasize that she is also very personally dangerous. I don't dislike that element of Thuringwethel's character, because it's going to make anything we can do to make her seem better before she gets taken down next season is good, right? So I kind of like that element of it. Yeah, I don't think we need lesser bad guys. I think that that would complicate things too much.
Well, that's apparently my mission tonight.
Right, right.
Well,
Yeah,
just, I mean, that first scene with Amlach is from Amlach's point of view, not from Thorongrathal's point of view.
right.
So the question is it scarier if one person comes in and suddenly guys are falling down, or is it scarier if you get jumped by a bunch of people?
I think if it's kind of a nice payoff to have her be like, if she lures Amlach off in the same kind of way that she lures Hador off later on, like it's kind of a good payoff of that later in the episode, especially because we'll know, like we will have seen what happened to Hador and his people. Like we will have seen them get like ripped to bloody shreds, and like Amlach and maybe his one friend to be an interlocutor who like is like, you know, limping, and you know, I'm imagining Amlach like supporting this one friend as they've like escaped wounded and are staggering off towards creepy forest because it seems their only hope of safety from like ninja death lady who was ambushing them. But I'm thinking she still lures them away in a similar way that you guys were describing. Like she does like a kind like a damsel in distress kind of thing, right? Like, you know, she calls out and she would have the, you know, she could take on the appearance of, you know, like a damsel in distress, right? You know, she looks like this, you know, young lass who is in need of help, and they're all coming to help her. And then, you know, she like opens up a can, right, and like takes them all out. That's kind of terrifying, actually. I think that could be really creepy and work really well. And then again, we see her doing the same thing with Hador, because Hador would totally fall for that, right? Like, I mean, Hador is exactly the kind of hero who would fall for the damsel in distress routine, right?
He's also a 21-year-old guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the record, who's been living with a bunch of soldiers for the last 3 years.
Right. So you're saying damsel full stop is sufficient. Right. Yeah. Now I agree with Nick's desire not to have Thuringwethel lure him away with wiles of that sort. It shouldn't be a seduction. I agree, but
yeah, that's not how Thuringwethel operates at all. She wouldn't bother with using them.
But it would make him susceptible to the damsel in distress.
The kind of guy who would be like, "I'm here to help you, little lady."
Yes, absolutely. And she, that would be he would be easier than Amlach, certainly, in that. In fact, I'm almost imagining. I'm imagining this scene now, like of her trying to do the damsel in distress thing with Amlach at the beginning. Maybe the reason it doesn't completely succeed is that Amlach is having none of it. Like Amlach is like a little bit of a jerk, right? I mean, he's not like the best, most noble character, you know. So maybe he is like they see what it is, and then they're like, you know, whatever, like, you know, we're not buying, you know, and so like they're like about to turn and leave, and then she's like, fine, like I'll have to kick all of your butts then. Like, you know, plan B, I'm just gonna take you all down right here and now, right? Rather than lure you over there, which is where I had this big plan, but fine, plan B is just to slay you all where you stand. And that's why she does that with Amlach. Whereas, you know, again, Hador, you know, is gonna go right with her. But then what tips him off? Does he just go like cheerfully with her and then she attacks him, or does he resist somehow? I mean, is this, it's not, I think it shouldn't just be he's totally suckered in, but then wins the combat, right? I think it should not be that. So there would have to be something.
We've had Thuringwethel deceive Círdan for an extended period of time, and Círdan is one of our wisest characters.
She's good at this. Yeah.
So she's very good at this. And if Hador had any suspicions, she would probably quickly allay them.
Yeah.
From my point of view, I don't think Hador's strength is wisdom. It might be discernment of hearts on some level, but he figures out something's wrong with the situation. Like he has a bad gut feeling about it, but it's not because she tips him off in some way.
Yeah. No, I agree. She can't fail in that way. If, of all the ways that she could fail, that would be the last way in which she would fail. I guess she could just attack him. I guess she could just attack him. But I guess the problem that I'm having is if I'm getting back to the where is Sauron thing, right? Because if she succeeds in luring him away, like originally I was thinking she's luring him towards Sauron, but doesn't get there because he somehow resists, right? But if she succeeds in luring him, why isn't Sauron there, right? I mean, if they're off in the, I mean, if the plan is to put the whammy on him, why have we not proceeded with that plan? There would have to be something that would disrupt the, luring away moment and lead to combat.
Do we want her to try to put the whammy on him? I mean, we've only seen Sauron and Morgoth do it to this point, but technically she's just as much of a Maiar as Sauron is.
We're gonna show... It's later on, right? We haven't done our vampire moment, right? Have we?
Right. It's in the later episode.
Yeah.
Where she's going to visit Anile. So yeah, she has the ability to use this spell.
Well, I'm thinking like we might as well set that up a little bit, right? So that we know. I mean, so far all we've seen her do, fight a little bit, but we've just seen her spy and we've seen her shapeshift and deceive, right? We don't even know that she can do that. So showing her attempt to do something like this to Hador, which by the way could even be explained by them, that is Sauron and Thurin-Gwethel, underestimating Hador, right? In the whole, like, we're still kind of underestimating humans sort of mode that so many people are in, right, at this point. And, okay, so we would need this to be if we did that, I think the most sensible thing would be for it to be an explicit setup for what is going on with Anile later on.
Okay, so she lures him off a little bit with the idea that he's going to help somebody who needs help.
Yeah.
And so he brings the Dragon Helm with him because he's going to go fight somebody, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, he puts on his helmet and he's coming,
Right, so she gets him alone. She goes to put the spell on him. At this point, he realizes something's wrong, and so he fights back. But she does wound him, and then his guys come and save the day. Right. So everything happened more or less how it was supposed to, except that he was neither whammied nor killed.
Yeah, okay, but if she's gonna lay a whammy on him, like, I gotta tell Nick that I'm not sure how this happens in the utter absence of feminine wiles. Like, I'm just saying, like, I kind of think it's gonna go there. At least a little bit, at least implicitly, right? I mean, she doesn't have to like dress in something slinky, but like,
she does need to stare into his eyes a bit.
There's gonna be tension, like it's gonna be like, look, there's never been an utter, apart from Nosferatu, there's never been a totally non-erotic, adaptation of Dracula, and there's a reason for that. Like it's it's kind of there, and okay. Now Nick is suggesting, what if we ditch the luring away entirely and have her just like do the hovering over him while he's sleeping thing, to be a more direct parallel to what's going to be going on with Anile. So Nick, instead you're saying your solution to this problem is to have her sneak into his tent at night while he's in bed. This is better, you're saying? Fewer feminine wiles being deployed under these circumstances, you're thinking, Nick? Okay. No, I'm with you. I'm with you, but I agree. I mean, I agree that that's a more direct parallel to the on-isle situation, yeah. Okay. Now Nick is saying it's just like it's she's not being a temptress. She it's just in the eye of the beholder, right? Okay, right. I agree. So now
Right.
if we
guys
think
sneaking into your bedroom at night is totally just a thing that happens
it's
sometimes.
exactly. It's just and it's just like get your mind out of the gutter, if you're thinking that her sneaking into the Studley 21-year-old guy's tent, played by we don't even know whom, right? Yet, is and sneaking into his bed and like lingering over him in some kind of slinky way is just it's just us. It's just us. Yep. I agree. I mean, it's true. She's not actually tempting him. Like, it's not like she's trying to seduce him. She's not, right? It's not a seduction thing. It's gonna look like it, but it's not gonna be one. Okay.
Either way, he's alone. She tries to whammy him. He fights back. His guys show up. She leaves. Is the scenario, regardless of who is tempting who with what, and how if the director decides to frame the scenes and what music is playing in the background. Whatever.
Right. Maybe we should consult Phil. So Phil, here's the thing, Phil. We need a Thorin putting the whammy on dude in his own bed that does not sound sexy at all. Like, that's what we need. We need yeah. No, I like it.
Do we have time for the C plot tonight or no?
Well, we probably shouldn't. Mostly because I don't want to be rushing through it. I mean, this is an important moment in the Aedhel. The Aedhel and Aredhel plot lines is one of the most interesting ones of the whole season, right? And most emotionally complex, as far as like most emotionally complex depictions that we're trying to do in the whole season. So I don't want to rush that because this is a really pivotal moment in their relationship. Okay. So let's save that for we'll do that at the beginning of next time. Then maybe we can also catch up on the frame. And hey, in fact, maybe we can do like that and then 3 episodes worth of frame, and then we can continue on with episode, because we're doing episode 8 next time, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are. The Rebellion of the House of Hador, which is less bloody than the Rebellion of the Noldor, because more benignly led. Though, by the way, I also, it's funny that you talk about that here in this slide, because I was also, of course, thinking about like Hador making his speech before the Estelad is also very like Feanor making his speech to the Noldor, right? I mean, it's there are some strong parallels there, just but obviously differences as well. But it's interesting, like this hot young charismatic guy who comes fully armed and makes a speech in front of all his people and leads them out on a long journey into danger. Yeah, I mean, like, we've seen that story before, haven't we? But of course, it's so there's an interesting way in which Hador and Andreth are kind of like redeeming that plot line, in some ways. I mean, it's really a kind of like what might have been sort of scenario there, which I find really interesting. Of course, it could also lead people into, being worried about Hador, like thinking this is going to end really badly, which I guess one could argue that it, depending on your definition of ending well or badly. But anyway, it's not going to end the same way. All right. Anyhow, onwards we go. So you can look at the script discussion stuff you can see in the season 5, episode 8 section of the script discussion forum, as we were showing you before. But anyway, it'll be fun to continue thinking about all this stuff as we move forward. Thanks everybody for our long, and we got really fixated on some details here tonight, but that's good. I think this was a really fun one, and I can see how difficult this was to kind of try to frame in the first place, right? I mean, it's there's a lot going on here, and a lot that needs to be accomplished in this episode. So I can really appreciate that. Anyway, Thanks, everybody. Fun discussion tonight. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks' time on the 20th of May for continuing this discussion and starting up episode 8. So I will say, as always, thanks for listening and Godspeed.